Hello and welcome back to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Morgan. So, the Keystone XL Pipeline has been in the headlines for literally years, and now in the year 2021, it is back in the headlines because President Biden has recently put a stop to the project on his first day back in office. Now, those opposed to the pipeline are looking forward to the future where other pipelines may meet the same fate, while those in favor of the pipeline are seething with rage and hiding behind the jobs that were attached to the project, specifically the construction of the pipeline. So that means it's time to grab your snowflake drink of choice. You can probably guess which side of this argument I'm on, and let's get into this. Let's very briefly talk about the kind of background of this pipeline. Now, the Keystone XL Pipeline is a planned pipeline that would be about 1,179 miles or 1,897 kilometers long, and it would run from the oil sands up in Alberta, Canada, down to Steel City, Nebraska, where it would meet up with an existing pipeline to move that oil to refineries in Texas. If we look at this image here, you can see that the solid line is actually an existing pipeline that also goes by the name Keystone Pipeline. But the new one, so the dotted line in this image, would be the proposed pipeline that we just talked about that is so controversial, and it would basically just make it a more direct route. So some of the big deals about this pipeline and why it's so controversial is that it will increase greenhouse gas emissions, it will threaten critical wildlife habitat like the habitat of the sage grouse, it will threaten drinking water, and it will negatively impact human health. This pipeline was originally proposed back in 2008, so this discussion has been going on quite a while now, and this pipeline has literally been protested ever since it was proposed. And we'll talk about specific protests a little more in a couple of days when we talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline, which that pipeline is usually kind of hand in hand in conversation with the Keystone XL Pipeline, but I think that the discourse is different enough that we're going to separate that into two videos. One of the key things about the Keystone XL Pipeline is that in order to be built, it needs a presidential permit. Now, back when it was originally concocted and back when the permit was originally being pursued, President Obama was in office and he did not issue that permit. So let's fast forward a little bit to 2015, when the Obama administration actually vetoed the pipeline, citing that the environmental impact, the threat to clean drinking water, the threat to human health, and a need to move away from this reliance on fossil fuels in general as the reasoning for this veto and the reasoning why this pipeline would not be built. Well, of course, President Trump, very shortly after that, when he took office, issued an executive order to advance that pipeline and very quickly issued the needed presidential permit to kickstart building of this pipeline, despite protests from environmental groups. And so we come to what is going on now and what is being argued about now. President Biden has revoked that presidential permit and essentially stopped the Keystone XL Pipeline project. So it cannot be built, or any more construction cannot be done without this presidential permit. So let's take a little look at the arguments in favor of the pipeline and address them at this point, because they're pretty important. The main argument that kind of pops up when you're talking about people, or talking to people, or they're talking about the pipeline and getting angry that the project has been stopped, is that the pipeline will create thousands of jobs and thousands of lasting jobs. Well, the thing about these jobs is, yeah, constructing the pipeline will create a lot of jobs, and it has created a lot of jobs, and those jobs are essentially gone now that construction has stopped. But they're only temporary jobs. But the rhetoric used by people in support of this pipeline is that they're going to be these massive permanent jobs. But if you even look at the Keystone XL website, which is linked down below, by the way, you'll notice that they're very careful to claim thousands of jobs during construction. The Keystone Pipeline website itself doesn't claim at all that it's thousands of permanent jobs. So really note that yeah, there are thousands of temporary jobs, but temporary. They're not permanent. And if you look further into the source material, the estimate for how many permanent jobs this project would actually create is about 50. So thousands during building, but 50 once that construction is over. That is a big difference. The next argument is that the pipeline will lower gas prices in North America. But according to the National Resource Defense Council, that may not actually be the case, since the intent for a large portion of this oil would likely be to be sent to overseas markets, and that could actually lead to even an incremental increase in gas prices back here in North America. So that argument itself is a little misguided as well. And if you notice on the Keystone XL Pipeline website, they don't directly say it will lower gas prices. They word things as energy independence. So this claim of lowering gas prices is a fabricated claim to gain support for this pipeline, much like the thousands of permanent jobs claim. And if we're talking about this right now, I'd actually like to note that according to the Keystone website, the pipeline will increase safe, sustainable energy while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, specifically, they say reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the oil sands, and yeah, technically, but according to the Nature article that I have linked down below, the pipeline may ultimately result in a spike in greenhouse gas emissions, especially if the claim that it will lower gas prices is correct. That's going to increase greenhouse gas emissions. They're just not going to be coming directly from the oil sands. But if you look at net gas emissions, they're going to go up, and it's going to be a direct result of the pipeline, which is not a good thing. And then I would like to note that fossil fuels and clean, sustainable energy are mutually exclusive. There is no such thing as a clean fossil fuel. You cannot be a fossil fuel and be clean, sustainable energy. They don't go together. They are mutually exclusive. That thing on the website is absolutely laughable. So what now? What's going to happen now that the permit has been revoked and the project is halted? Well, there's still other permits, like from the BLM, that are going to need to be revoked as well to truly end the project, and there's going to be quite a few legal battles to be fought by the parties directly benefiting from the construction of the pipeline. Now, it's also important to note here that the construction jobs that were associated with the pipeline were temporary. And while I'm not saying that the job loss that has happened as a result of the permit being revoked in the previous weeks is not a serious thing, it is serious. But committing to green energy, like the rest of the world is shifting towards, like the Green New Deal would have us commit to, will ultimately create new permanent jobs in the future, whereas this pipeline is ultimately only creating very temporary jobs, as they're only expecting construction to take a couple of years anyway. So in a couple of years, those same jobs would be gone. So, and yeah, the other thing that I keep saying is that we're in a pandemic, so every job is important. And yeah, we are in a pandemic, but that doesn't mean that the pipeline should be built just to keep some temporary jobs around. Taking care of your citizens during a national crisis like we're currently in is a completely separate issue from allowing a destructive, environmentally misguided or environmental disaster of a pipeline to be built. That is a completely separate issue. So fossil fuels and oil are not the future. So even though we are in a pandemic, the job loss is unfortunate, but they were temporary jobs anyway, and that discussion about keeping your nation going in a pandemic has nothing to do with the pipeline, to be quite honest. And so President Biden revoking this permit is the first step in ending this project and moving away from our dependence on fossil fuels and moving towards this future of clean energy. But there's still a lot more to go, and I expect to see a lot more in the news about this in the coming days. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, what have you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff down below, and I will see you all in the next one.
Thank you again for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell if you would like to see more. And if you'd like to follow me on any of my other social medias, the links are down in the description below. Don't forget to check out thereptilegoth.com for all of my articles and blog posts. If you found any value in this video and you would like to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon page. That link is also in the description down below. And a special thanks goes out to my Diamond Dragon patron, Diane V. What you're doing is really helping me fund a dream here. I will see you guys all in the next one.